And then that day that we have the event, Teams breaks down, there's no breakout rooms, the chat isn't working. How do I press pause on this thing? And how do we navigate this? How do we solve this? I just froze. It seems to me that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are hopeful that when the tech is good enough, we will not need to facilitate anymore. And we realized we were sitting in a couch surfer's basement and playing a video game. We should probably do something outside. And then we looked at each other and went, yeah, we probably should. But neither of us wanted to leave the basement. That's how burnt out we were. It was difficult to get ourselves to go to the grocery store. So the problem is, how do you feel that your work has significance? I think AI is threatening the feeling that our work has any value. What I do think is that people have to make pilgrimages. You have to go far to see near, I think is a proverb. You might find you become passionate about it because you put in so much effort. You start to understand it more. It starts to become more and more rewarding. The excellence itself becomes a kind of, I just enjoy being really good at something. And then it becomes your passion.
What were you hoping to find?
I know that what I wanted to find was...
Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to the Solo Sauce podcast. My name is Joeri, and on this show, I have honest conversational chats with people who work for themselves, sharing real stories, insights, and maybe even some practical tips that you can use on your own solo journey. On today's episode, I am joined by Jonas Rajanto, who is a facilitator and facilitation trainer at Grape People, where they help teams communicate better, collaborate better, make better decisions, and have conversations that actually lead somewhere. We'll get into things like facilitation, AI, collaboration, and also why kind of bringing people together is still a very human skill, which I don't think a lot of technology can replace yet. But at the heart of this conversation is Jonas' sabbatical. We talk about what he set out to go and find, what he actually found and learned along the way, and why so many people right now feel the urge to escape their work. As always, I'll be back with some of my thoughts at the end, but for now, enjoy my conversation with Jonas Rajanto. What's the worst thing you've had on like a virtual session?
I think my worst experience ever was when at Grape People, we had always avoided hybrid stuff until 2022, when it was unavoidable. So clients had kept asking us increasingly, can you help us with hybrid? Can you help us with hybrid? And we always said, just don't do it, guys. It's awful. And then we couldn't say that anymore, or we would be out of business. So we thought, all right, let's do a demo of a hybrid event and demonstrate it is doable. So we set it up. We had about 20 people in room. We had about 40 something people online in Teams. And then I hadn't had a single technical challenge with Teams for like a year. And then that day that we have the event, Teams breaks down, there's no breakout rooms, the chat isn't working, nothing works except for the sound and video. And I'm thinking, how on earth do I give instructions to people if I don't have a chat? And how on earth do I engage 40 people without breakout rooms or the chat? This is impossible. I just froze. And I had a colleague who was watching like the stream. He was in the room, but he was watching the stream on his phone, and he was like, yeah, something's not right. I can see from Jonas's face, something is definitely wrong. And I thought, all right, it's no problem. We have a Zoom license as well. I'll just get people over to Zoom. But I don't have a chat. How do I give them the link? So all of this took maybe 20 minutes, and we were able to continue. So it wasn't a disaster. And some people's feedback was like, obviously some people said, this is exactly why hybrid doesn't work. And you have proved it today. And some other people said, I can't believe you recovered from that. Not many people would have. So it was a triumph, but it was so painful to sit there. Like my colleague is talking to people in room, and I'm like, how do I press pause on this thing? And how do we navigate this? How do we solve this? It was nerve-wracking. I think that was the worst moment.
I can imagine, and I've been there. Hey, I know a little bit about you, but for the people who don't know Jonas, welcome. For the people who don't know, let me do that again. Welcome, Jonas. For the people who don't know, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
All right. Well, so hey, I'm Jonas. I introduced myself as a facilitator and facilitation trainer, but my journey here came from IT.
Oh, hey, quick one. If you are enjoying this episode, you could do me a massive solid by leaving a like, leaving a comment or question if you like, or share this episode with somebody who could really use this right now. All right, let's get back into the episode.
I had a tough time in high school. My school success was kind of a very it was very on and off. Um, and I didn't really know what I wanted to pursue. I thought maybe English or French. I loved languages in general, and I was just maybe I'll pursue languages, or maybe psychology. I took every elective course that I could in high school about psychology. But then I had always been good with computers, and my dad was like a computer admin for a like a company of 200, and I had done a lot of summer jobs with him, and he said, "My son, you must choose computers. Computers are the future." This was like the year 99, and I was like, well, I guess it makes sense. Um, my high school English teacher, when she found out that I had pursued engineering, like information technology engineering, she was like, "An engineer? You can't be serious." And at the time, I didn't really know like what's the issue. But a few years into my studies, I realized I don't really belong here. Like, yeah, I'm good with tech, but somehow I don't belong. Still, I worked for about 8 years in IT after graduating, and then a friend tipped me off about a new position at a small consulting company. They're looking for a virtual facilitator. I was like, okay, sounds good, I guess. And I Googled facilitation. Yeah, that does sound interesting. So I went to an interview, and then, long story short, they did hire me, and I had kind of an identity crisis. That what am I? Am I like the computer guy, or am I the people guy? And I was right in the middle. Um, that's how I came into this job, and I started out just doing virtual facilitation. I was like a specialist in that, and I was trying to make it normal before COVID. To have meetings virtually and to run them well and to actually engage people and get stuff done and everyone has a good time. Uh, then COVID came and suddenly everyone was a virtual facilitator and there was no other kind of facilitator. And then things changed again. And then the question was, well, should Jonas still be our specialist? I mean, we get a lot of face-to-face now. And so I started doing face-to-face more since 2022. And so now I think I'm more of a like general just facilitator. I understand how groups work, how we get groups to work. What are the reasons that people don't engage in group meetings, and that's kind of in a nutshell.
The reason I find that interesting because going from IT again, I'm really generalizing. IT focuses on systems, facilitation focuses more on people, or am I missing something? What's the overlap there?
Well, I think it's interesting to think of it like if we think of a gradient, that at one end there's a person who doesn't really even see people. You just see systems. That even people work. That they see people as machines, more or less. That's one extreme. The other extreme is that they refuse to see anything other than people as these whole complex multidimensional beings, even spiritual beings, etc., that we cannot be reduced to any kind of systems. And then somewhere in between, you recognize both, that we are these singular, unique, wonderful individuals with backstories, with families and lives outside of work, which do influence how we show up at work, how we show up in meetings, how we show up in collaboration. But then there are these structures that also shape us. And anyone who has switched jobs has noticed that they see themselves differently when going from one system to another, that we take maybe on a different role because what the team needed in my previous job from me was different than what the team needs from me in my new job, and I discover new things about myself. And the new culture somehow teaches us what is appropriate behavior at this company, in this organization. What does success look like? What am I rewarded for? All of that does shape our behavior as well. So I'm kind of you can't deny either of these realities.
With that in mind, which environment are you more comfortable in? The more systems or the more people side? And why?
I'm laughing because I think it's a case of the grass is always greener on the other side, but I guess I'm comfortable enough. Maybe I'm slightly more comfortable today with the people who value this human side. And in fact, now that I talk about this, I realize that as AI keeps growing and taking over more and more, and we're kind of automating work and removing work from people, what is left? That is what intrigues me. What is left for us to do? And that is talking about what is the purpose of the work that we do. How would we like to work together so that working towards that purpose is frictionless, enjoyable, productive, etc. So I guess the advent of AI is just making me realize more that I'm part of that people side more than the technical side.
So with AI being everywhere in your work setting, how has that affected your work as a facilitator? If at all.
That is a tough question. I became aware of ChatGPT in at the end of November 22. So it had made me maybe come out, I don't know, a week or two before. And I was like, oh, what's this? And then I chatted with it for a while and I asked it, so, all right, could AI facilitate? And the response, even though the response was that not really, these are the human elements that AI cannot do, the fact that it could recognize what those elements are blew my mind. It's like, oh, this might actually change things. Then I had kind of an existential crisis that I thought, this is so powerful that it's probably going to manipulate me, that I have to be careful how much I give my attention to this thing, or it's going to sweep me away. So I tried to kind of keep a distance to it for a couple of years. And then again, it wasn't an option anymore. So I was like, all right, let's delve into this. What I realized was how it affects my work is, first and foremost, it doesn't matter how it objectively might change my work as a facilitator. What mattered was how it changes my client's perception about facilitation or the need of a facilitator. So it seems to me that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are hopeful that when the tech is good enough, we will not need to facilitate anymore. That these meetings somehow take care of themselves. We get structure, we get, we get everyone to engage, and we get good outcomes. But of course, I don't really buy that. What I've seen is that it's really good at taking notes. But when you start using those notes, for example, for decision making, that's where we get into dangerous territory. We're a really small consultancy. So at most, we've had 9 people at the height of COVID. And nowadays we're 6. 6 people, 2 of which are back office, and 4 people are active facilitators, trainers, consultants. So we're kind of strained on resources in trying to make this facilitation AI, an assistant that could help you plan really good meetings and try new things, and then create kind of a feedback loop for learning how to facilitate better and better. That's what we would love to create, but until now haven't been able to. And we find it difficult to use AI really in our actual work, like the facilitation itself, planning. Everything we get is kind of generic, not very, we have a lot deeper expertise than what AI can give us. And we're not really looking for always a new method. It's no, we want to get good outcomes, and that usually has a good structure to it. So it's a long-winded way of saying AI hasn't transformed my work, I use it almost every day for all sorts of small things, but not yet for my core work, not for planning better workshops.
Let's talk a bit about the software. You facilitate and train people in multiple countries all over the place, all over the world. What do people still get wrong about collaboration and bringing people together, particularly in hybrid or virtual settings? What do people get wrong?
I've actually just discussed this with a colleague this past week, that I would say there are two kinds of problems. If an organization is very traditional and very hierarchical, then the problem is that there's not enough communication and collaboration across the company. And everyone works in a silo, like an information or knowledge silo. And there's no shared awareness of where we are as a company and where we're going, where we should be going, where we're actually going, how we should course correct. So then what people get wrong is they don't host these forums where people from different parts of the organization can come together. And you don't even have to have a tight agenda for those gatherings. It could be something like we have, let's say, 2 hours or 3 hours of open-ended discussion. Anyone can propose a topic. For example, what should we develop in our company right now and why? So they propose a topic, and then we get, let's say we have 30 people there, we get 8 topics. People can choose whatever they're working on. It's self-directed. There's no need to time anyone's rotations or anything. It's very light facilitation-wise, but people get to talk across organizational boundaries about what they are interested in, what they're passionate about. So kind of release people's passion, and even if the outputs from that gathering are nothing to write home about, we've created a lot of connections where people learn more about each other and what's happening in other parts of the company. The other type of problem is that we have a very kind of advanced, forward-thinking, modern organization. It's very agile. Maybe it's even too agile, meaning there are very clear structures that what do we do daily, what do we do weekly, what do we do monthly, bi-monthly, etc. And your calendar isn't full of bad meetings, but they're full of short meetings, which means we don't accomplish a lot in any single meeting. So what is not addressed if your calendar is full of short, very efficient meetings is how do we tackle the gnarly problems, the really wicked problems, which there's no simple solution, and you have to weigh different perspectives, that what is even causing this issue? So what might we do about it? And so who could do something about it? What kind of an experiment could we do to try to fix this? Those don't happen in 30 minutes or even 60 minutes. You might need a large group and you might need a long time. So kind of then what people are not doing are these interventions, pressing pause and asking, what is happening and what do we do? There's an issue that we need to solve. And we come together and kind of brainstorm about it.
But what is the main role of facilitation? I mean, we talked a bit about how AI, cannot solve certain problems.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem that a good facilitator solves then?
I would say the foremost question is always that we really understand and we've thought about the purpose of coming together. Why these people? Why right now? And what do we want to achieve? People are not thinking about the outcome as much as they're thinking about the agenda. And those are two different things. Agenda is like a list of items that we need to discuss. And the outcome is what changes if we discuss these things, or what do we want to change when we discuss these things. And then I would say when the purpose is clear, you start designing the gathering from that purpose. That, all right, are these the right people for this purpose? What is the right duration? How much time do we actually need to get deep enough in the conversation? How do we need to engage people? And what do we need to engage people for exactly? Are we looking for example, that we're planning an organizational change, and we need to be more informed about how this will possibly impact the people who this change is about. So we interview some of those people in advance to learn more. It could be a workshop that we facilitate where we're learning by discussing, and then the outcome or the purpose is that we can design a better change now. We're more informed. So that's what we need people for. In a later stage, maybe we need another set of people to actually make the plan for that change. So we're getting into the organizational design stage, that what do we want to change, and what structures or tools or processes do we want to change. And then people are actually, as creators, part of this workshop. And so there's like the purpose, then there's the process, which is very much dependent on the purpose and the people who this is for. And then there's one more ingredient, which is when we're there, let's say I have a really good plan, but something unexpected happens. For some reason, people are not buying the purpose of this gathering after all. They're resisting some way that I'm engaging them. And I'm wondering what's happening. So I think being able to be present, being able to adapt in the live situation with the group is another ingredient of like, what is facilitation actually? And I think that last ingredient is the hardest one to solve with AI.
There's only so much AI can do. For now, it might change in the future. I'm going to take a bit of a detour. You've had something which a lot of people wish they had, which is a sabbatical. Tell me about how that came about. So the build up to the sabbatical, you were a bit like, I need a sabbatical. What was happening that led you to that decision?
Okay, so that idea started when I met my wife. So we had been dating for maybe a year, and then we started discussing kind of, so what are we planning for? What's the future look like? And so we asked each other the questions like, so what are you looking for in life really? Is it like family? No, I don't know. Is it like a big house or a fancy car? Nah, I don't know. Well, what are you looking for? And we both landed on, well, actually, we're just super curious and we want to learn a lot about the world. So should we like go traveling, like big time go traveling? Yeah, let's. So we started saving up and making plans. And that process took 2.5 years before we actually had enough and had made our plans. And both were in kind of this spot in our careers as well that we felt, I don't know how to enjoy my work further in this organization. I would have to change jobs somehow to enjoy work again. Maybe this is a good spot to go. It didn't last 12 months, however, because we hadn't anticipated starting to burn out from traveling, which started happening at like month 9 or 10, I think. And we realized we were sitting in a couch surfer's basement and playing a video game. And I looked at the time and I was like, it's noon, it's 20 degrees outside and the sun is shining. We should probably do something outside. And then we looked at each other and went, yeah, we probably should. But neither of us wanted to leave the basement. So that's how burned out we were. It was difficult to get ourselves to go to the grocery store. And we realized we have to take some kind of break here. So we had previously visited a friend of a friend in Seattle. And we asked, can we crash at your place for a little bit longer? Like, I think we got along well. What do you say we come there for 4 weeks? And he said, yeah, that sounds good to me. So we paid a little rent and we stayed there and watched movies, played video games, and went rock climbing every other day for the next 4 weeks. And we felt like, all right, we're living again. But then by that time, we didn't have money to fulfill the rest of our plans. So we decided we're gonna do a quick Vegas trip and go home. But that was essentially 10 months is how long we were actually traveling. And that's how the burnout manifested.
What were you hoping to find? And what did you end up finding?
I think, well, I can't speak for my wife. I know that what I wanted to find was wisdom. Like I had been seeing more and more and being frustrated with this Western life that's focused on achievements and fame and monetary success and all of it. And I was like, this is not the answer. There has to be something deeper. And I thought, if we go east and if we travel to a bit of different places, maybe maybe the Buddhists have some answers, I thought. And so in Thailand, I paid attention to the monks that I saw walking around. And then I talked to a few people there, and I realized, you know what? They're as clueless as we are. Nobody knows what life is actually about. There's no religion that has that answer. What I ended up finding was that I thought I could never be happy settling in one place. But when I came back, I realized all the things that I loved about Finland, even though there were a lot of things that frustrated me to no end. Like I'm half Swedish, and I went in exchange when I was younger to the States and Canada, and I realized I'm very outspoken compared to most Finns, and I was so frustrated with everyone being, not being able to hold a conversation essentially. But then I realized it's so nice the Finns are reliable, and they're hardworking and they're sincere. Those things are worth a lot. And I guess I also realized that starting over in another place when you're 30 is not that simple. It's a lot of work to build up networks, and you don't make friends so easily anymore after you're done with all of your studies, and everyone has families and busy lives. So I guess I also started to appreciate that I have a good network at home.
I think a lot of people think they need a break or a career change. I have a feeling, I don't know, I'd be curious to see how you see this, that right now, because the economy is a bit weird, business is down, companies not spending that much, AI is everywhere. I think because people are uncomfortable where they are, they might think they need that. They need that change. What do you think they are looking for really?
I believe people need to feel like what they do has significance, and that's it. So the problem is, how do you feel that your work has significance? I think AI is threatening the feeling that our work has any value. If it's automatable, then what am I actually worth? Am I worth anything? And well, actually, when I've read some books or longer articles about this, I think this is a point in history where, well, I'm not sure if we go back far enough, maybe we did not identify ourselves with work too much. But maybe we over identify ourselves with work these days. That what is our value if we're not employed? Like the entire state is founded, like works because people are paying taxes, because people are working. So it's kind of like I'm valuable as a citizen because I'm working. If I'm not, am I valuable? So I think people need to do stuff that gives them a sense of meaning. And unfortunately, a lot of those activities are not paid activities. There are things like organizing a birthday party, or reminiscing about our time in the military together, or having a baby shower and sharing experiences like what it's like to be a parent. These are the most meaningful things, and yet they're not paid activities. But we do need to make a living, and so I think this is the conundrum that my identity, my work identity, is possibly threatened. How do I still maintain a sense of dignity about my life?
I do wholeheartedly believe that makers are happier. One of the things, a bit of projection here, but every time I make something, I used to find like old furniture in Singapore. I had a couple of chairs people threw away. I took it in, sanded it down, cleaned it up, did the upholstery, and I was like, I made that. That was so satisfying. Then I sold it, by the way, so I did make a bit of money off it. But my point is, every time I make something, whether it's making a video, Maybe some people's piece of coding, a game. People are happier when they make stuff.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. And it's something that this become also clearer with AI, because you can make mediocre stuff easily with AI. But if you want to create something beautiful, something that that you're proud of, it just doesn't work. Like, I can get an idea from AI, but I actually have to put in the work to feel like I made something that is worth people's time and attention, or something that is a joy to look at for me, like a set of slides, right? I can use Gamma to create all sorts of nice presentations, but for some reason, going through, like, putting together a presentation for something, and thinking about what is the purpose of each element here, and how do these tie together, and how do I make the timings work, and how do I make it so that I'm not just talking about it, I'm engaging everyone in a satisfying way so that we're creating something together. When I put together that deck and look at it, and I put in, like, I don't know, 5 hours of iteration, it starts to feel like this is nice. I feel proud of it in a completely different way than, yeah, I was able to write a great prompt and looks pretty good. And I always have to make it my own. That's the problem with producing stuff with AI. I am not comfortable publishing anything, using anything that I don't own. So I have to process it a lot anyway. So I'm definitely like a believer in we have to make things. And for some people it's immaterial. You know, what are masseuses making? They're making, happier shoulders, but it's not something they can keep. It's not something they can see. It's just something that the person that leaves their massage table, um, they leave happier. They take it with them. But those are immensely valuable things, or taking care of other people's kids. I think those people are makers as well. It just looks different.
What I'm hearing is a lot of the things that give people a level of a sense of fulfillment is probably already within your reach. So you don't have to go travel the world. Is sabbaticals are sabbaticals still going to be a thing for the future?
The ecological crisis is a question on many people's minds, that even if I want to go traveling big time, is it okay to? Is it like morally acceptable to go? And I can't answer people for that. What I do think is that people have to make pilgrimages. You have to go um, you have to go far to see near, I think is a proverb. That you can't really see and appreciate what you have until you go somewhere else and you do something different, and you give up what you have for a while. Even if you think you're giving it up for something better, you might then realize that, like I did, that I thought seeing the volcanoes in New Zealand, and the lagoons in Thailand, etc., would be the things that I cherish. And actually, it's just the people that I met along the way that I cherished instead. And even that, after 10 more years, I realized actually all of those connections faded away. I could have pursued them, but I realized I want to pursue other things instead. But the pilgrimage was about kind of going somewhere and fighting for something I believed in, to find out whether, I might be disappointed and find out this isn't the thing that I thought it was. But you have to make that journey, whether it's inward or outward. Or you always be like, the question is going to nag you that, could my life somehow be better? I think you have to find out. And then your heart is at peace. Then you're like, I'm good here, actually. I don't need to go anywhere. Happiness is actually within grasp. And I don't need fancy things. I don't even need a lot of, activities. But you can't just make that statement and then believe it. I think you have to do stuff to believe it.
How do you design a way of working that you don't need to escape from?
For me, it's always been about navigating towards purpose. So asking myself what is meaningful, and then, as well as I can, saying yes and no at work to the things that I believe in or I don't believe in. I've always gravitated towards taking responsibility and taking initiative. So whenever someone offered me an opportunity to head something or to be responsible for something, I always took it. I was like, yes, let's do it. But I've also said no to things that I thought this is against my values. Like one time, I had already taken responsibility for developing, like this was in my tech journey, that I was developing a documentation platform and culture that our knowledge is documented so that when new people come into the company, it's easy for them to get started. And I was doing that full time, but I was asked to take on a project management for a large client, which would have taken 2 to 3 days per week. And I said no because I didn't want to give up on my colleagues. I thought this is a commitment that is really important to me. And even if I know that this is probably like I would get a little bit of fame. I don't think they promised any monetary compensation, but at least recognition and fame, and the company would really benefit from this. I thought I want to stick to what I've committed to already. This is more important. So sticking to my values, trying to be sincere, and taking responsibility, that helped me navigate towards a work that doesn't burn me out, work that feels rewarding and meaningful and significant every day. And I haven't needed to leave this company and these colleagues because I think we share the same idea that why should we do work that that doesn't fulfill us? Let's try to select the clients and the projects that we believe in, and so it feels good to put a lot of effort into them. We're not sacrificing ourselves. I think some level of self-sacrifice is proper, but then when you overdo it, that's when it's not sustainable.
I've had this discussion with this conversation, I should say. I've had this conversation with a couple of people. I came to the conclusion that there's a whole generation that's being told to like find their passion, right, and then make that their work, which I think is one of the worst ways and one of the easiest ways you get burned out. Because, for instance, let's take social media. Let's say you start creating YouTube videos, and you rely on that to make money, like for you and your family. YouTube is one of the hardest games to play. It's to make money off that, to create videos, sure. To make money off that, it's very hard. So I like to flip that around. I tell younger people, particularly, like find a passion in what you do. Like find something that makes sense, and then find a passion in what you do. And I do believe that when you make something, whether you're making connections, you're with other people, you're building something physically, you do photography, making something gives a level of fulfillment that people who make something will understand. And it doesn't have to be in your work. If your work, and again, this afternoon's conversation is going to be a bit about that. If your work is what you are professionally, it is how you make ends meet, you provide food for you and your family, then maybe you make something else from it. I do think that's also a great way to make sure you don't burn out. You make something elsewhere, create your little side projects, but don't force your side projects into like making money or something. Like if you create nice art, you do aquarelle painting. Once you start trying to make money of that, maybe it takes out all the fun that is into art.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Find something that makes sense, right? So it's something that you have some potential for. It's something that people obviously need, and it's something that the world is ready to pay for to some degree. If you find those ingredients and then you work really hard at it to become excellent, you might find you become passionate about it because you put in so much effort. You start to understand it more. It starts to become more and more rewarding. The excellence itself becomes a kind of, I just enjoy being really good at something. And then it becomes your passion.
I think a lot of people are just in the wrong jobs. I think the right people are in the wrong roles, and that's eating them up. And then I think you might get to a point where you think you need to go to the other end of the world to find that, or maybe just in the wrong job, mate. If you're somebody who thrives on a level of predictability and detail, like my wife, for instance, certain jobs would be great for her, other jobs would be terrible. If you're like me, you're like, I just need a big pile of sand I can play in. Well, being in a very rigid structure is probably going to burn me out. And I might go, you know what, I'm just going to spend $30,000 and 10 months of my life trying to fill that void somewhere else when the obvious answer is right in front of me. It's like, get a different job or do things in a different way?
The lightning round.
Okay, lightning round. Jonas, pick one. Finland or Sweden?
Finland.
If I ask your daughter, hey, what do you think your daddy does for a living? What would she say?
I think she would say he talks to people a lot.
What is one bit of tech you use every day?
Google Gemini.
What group is easier to facilitate? A group of introverts or a group of extroverts?
I actually think a group of introverts is easier.
Why is that, out of curiosity?
Maybe it has to do with my own personality and my own energy. But when I'm in a room of extroverts, it takes a lot of my energy to calm people down and to get them to focus. If they're introverts, I can somehow invite them slowly and warm them up slowly to the collaboration. And maybe they're more task oriented by nature. Then again, if I only had introverted groups, I would be bored to death. I like having both, but maybe I prefer slightly the introverted group.
What's one thing everybody gets wrong about remote work?
Remote work is a really broad category.
Virtual work. I'll make it like that.
Take the camera seriously. Well, I know some people prefer not to have cameras on at all, and that's fine. But whenever you want to influence people, in whatever way, you want them to buy your idea, you want them to become excited about something, show yourself and try, practice talking, seeing yourself on camera and talking and seeing, what am I using, even my expressions, my body language, because you seem a lot more human when you do. And maybe one thing that people don't they try to avoid, they think that in order to be good, I have to strictly look at the camera all the time, and it's creepy. I think it's creepy for me and for the others. But I just, I sometimes look at the audience, the video feeds. Sometimes I look at my slides. Sometimes I look into the camera if I want to stress some point. And often I just look out the window because I'm trying to find, what are the right words for this? How do I phrase this? And I think that makes me human. And it's a lot easier for people to connect with me and then possibly challenge me, which is necessary. If they want to buy my idea, they have to bring out what is concerning about my idea. I think people underestimate what they could do with the camera in virtual work.
Most surprising country you visited and why?
All right, I will say Cambodia. Maybe simply because it was the furthest from what I've grown up with, like the nature, the level of affluence, the infrastructure, the driving, like everything was so different, and so I think it was shocking. Oh, I remember actually even before that, the first time I visited India with my sister. That was a bit earlier, and yeah, because that was the time that I thought, okay, so I'm probably going to die on this taxi trip because of the way that they were driving. So let's put India as number one.
Nice. What's one thing you've learned on your sabbatical that kind of surprised you?
I would pick that even if a person is a monk, which means that their profession, their vocation is being spiritual, they can act surprisingly unspiritually. So, doesn't mean much.
If you weren't a facilitator, what would you be doing?
I think I would be designing software that makes meetings better. In fact, I've always been collaborating with software developers to give them ideas of how this product should look, how this should work. I was quite passionate about it, and when in 2019 or so, virtual reality started to become kind of mainstream. There was the Oculus headset that was like $500, and you could get access to virtual reality. I thought, all right, I want to work with the meeting app developers to create incredible meeting apps for virtual reality. So probably something like that.
What is one physical tool you cannot live without?
In my current work, I would pick our markers, Mr. Sketch scented markers. they are wonderful because the color lasts really well and they smell nice. And when you use all different kinds of colors in workshops, you get a better memory imprint than if everything is black on white.
What's the key to a good life?
Be honest. It's hard, but necessary for keeping, it's necessary for making sure that life gets better over time instead of worse.
I love that. Honesty, level of honesty. Jonas, where can people find you?
I am on LinkedIn primarily. I have other social media, but they've all kind of died off in recent years. The only one I keep up is LinkedIn. I do write and publish mostly in Finnish, but I guess the translation is so good that it doesn't matter anymore. You can always read my stuff, no matter what your own language is.
Wonderful. I will leave links to that LinkedIn. Go say hi to Jonas in English or Finnish. Jonas, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing. And I'm going to think about this episode a bit about what gives me meaning and maybe start making more things. I make videos now, but I'm going to make more things. Actually, I'm making a podcast. It's kind of fun as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And thanks for having me, Joeri. It was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Before I leave you with my thoughts, just want to say a massive thank you to Jonas for sharing so freely and so generously in this episode. Make sure you go check him out. I'll leave some of the links in the description below. Tell him you listen to the episode, tell him what you enjoyed. And while you're there, sign up for my weekly newsletter called The Solo Sauce, where I share smart ideas for people on their solo journeys. So here's a little thought I want to leave you with. And it's something that Jonas said. Sometimes you have to go far to see near, because I think right now a lot of people feel a bit stuck, or maybe a bit restless, or maybe a bit annoyed, maybe a bit tired. And because of that, they think that the change then has to be really big, something quite drastic. Maybe it's a sabbatical, maybe a career change, relationship change, a new country, something like completely different, complete reset. And yes, maybe a big change is the right thing for you, but maybe the thing that you're really looking for is more near than you think. Maybe it's not something big, but it's something like redesigning the way you work, or finding a bit of enjoyment in the things that you do right now. Or maybe it's having a couple of different conversations, or maybe it's moving a bit more. I talked about that in my newsletter recently, about the need to, when we get stuck, we stay seated. Maybe we need to move a bit, but you don't need to move across the world. Sometimes it's just maybe a bit of exercise, maybe just going out and about and touching some grass. Maybe that is what you're looking for. Maybe you just need to redesign the bits that are draining you right now. And his answer to the last question, what makes for a good life? Be honest. Maybe it's a good time to be honest about what it is that's really draining you, or what's working and what's not, or what's really driving that kind of that need to escape and to just throw it all away and just go somewhere completely different. And be honest about what you're chasing. Be honest about what it is that you think you're looking for versus what you're really looking for. Something for you to think about. Anyway, loved having you here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Make it a great day.